Good morning. It's Friday, October 19th, 2018. And if I sound a little less than enthused this morning, it is only because I thought today was Thursday. Somehow I've lost a whole day this week. I'm not sure how that happened. But as you can see, we are single subject this morning. We are taking a retrospective look at the events that happened in October a year ago. And this is not a multi-part retrospective. This is not an in-depth recap of everything we know, for reasons that I'll make clear in a moment. We are going to look at some breaking news. Maybe it's not breaking news to everybody, but it is breaking news to those of us who have followed some of this story. My hope is that people are still interested. And my prayer is for the people involved, that you have found some peace. And with that, let's jump off the desk and take a look at October 1st, 2017. Here is a shot from yahoo.com. It's a composite shot of some of the people who were victims of the shooting on October 1st, 2017 in Las Vegas during the Route 91 Harvest Festival concert. And I purposely avoid this image because there's an individual in this image who very much resembles somebody that I worked with for a year or two. I can't remember. And it's not really important to you, it's important to me. So I have avoided, as I said, this image because it's a little bit painful. This person that I'm referring to only resembles one of the people in the image. It is not, the individual I'm speaking of is not in the image. The individual I'm speaking of is fine and enjoying life. But these people aren't, and it's more than a year later, and we still don't have a timeline and an explanation of what happened. So, what's the breaking news I'm talking about? Well, Jack Posobiec of One America News, yesterday, they published an excerpt interview, or actually a follow-up interview, just a short clip of a longer interview that One America News did with a former CIA agent, and we're going to take a listen to a little bit of that under Title 17, Section 107, as are all the references in our broadcasts per usual. So, and links in the show notes, I might add, as always, as you would expect me to do. So, Jack Posobiec, and we have queued it up because they go into the, they start out with the, thank you for coming and doing a follow-up type intro stuff. So here we go.
Just on the heels of the one-year anniversary of the shooting in Las Vegas, the mass shooting in Las Vegas, and also the final police report has come out. And there's a number of interesting things in there that have been sort of glossed over that are worth bringing to everyone's attention. One of them is a within the body of the reports that the police collected, that law enforcement collected during this, was a report by a young lady who is a DHS TSA employee, so Department of Homeland Security, TSA, which are the folks at the airport. So she's got training that is clearly apparent in her report. Now, I've reached out to the young lady that did this, and she's asked me not to use her name, so I will not. But she was, as you noticed, a trained federal employee who happened to be there and observed something very interesting. In the official police report, the final report that just came out, they stated that no evidence exists to indicate Paddock conspired with or acted in collusion with anyone else. Right. No evidence exists. That's their claim. Now, at 9:20 p.m., this is when this TSA woman observed this to take place. She gives a very nicely detailed report. She describes two women at the back of the concert. The two women are standing on top of the bale of hay, and where they have a good vantage point to look down on the backs of the crowd facing towards the performer. The first woman says, "Those stupid effing white people, they are going to know how it feels. They deserve this. Wait until later." And this is about a half hour before the shooting begins. The second woman, "Woohoo! Like shooting fish in a barrel. Are you getting this, baby? I love you." Now, the woman that says, "Are you getting this, baby?" is standing with her phone, live streaming from the back of the concert what's going on. Now, while that is not conclusive proof, it's decidedly suspicious and has not been followed up on. Now, a couple of other things that
I want to stop right here and remind you of another report of another woman very early on, while the concert was going on, but before the shooting took place. There is a report of an alleged Latina standing, she works her way up into the front row. Whether she was standing there the whole time or whether she enters during the concert, I can't remember. And I also cannot remember who first reported on this. My suspicion is that we could find that out, but I didn't have time this morning to do that. This Latina says to another person, a woman standing also in close proximity to the stage, I believe in the front row, something like, "You're all gonna die," something like that. And I'm sorry I don't have the direct quote. I just can't remember who reported on it. I want to say it was Jason Goodman, but I could be wrong. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is this is the second report that we have had of non-Caucasians alluding to, or in this case, direct evidence based on a Department of Homeland Security TSA report. This is an official after incident report that this woman that the CIA agent is referring to. This is part of the official documentation, and we just now have it. So let's move on. I'm going to pause for a second because I want to cue one more thing up.
A couple of other things that came out of that, and one of them I want to go to next since we're kind of on the timeline issue. So this takes place at 21:20, 9:20 p.m., and now during that period there's no information as to what Stephen Paddock, the shooter, was doing in that room. Now, he was already located in the room from where the shooting took place at 32135 and 32134, the two rooms that he used.
And he's building up his barricades now in these rooms.
Correct. He's clearly in the final stages of preparing to start shooting. So at 21:36, so at 9:36, which is what, 16 minutes or so after this bale of hay incident, he throws the deadbolt. Now, this is all kept track of by the hotel, so they see when rooms are accessed and when the deadbolt is thrown on their in-house computer system.
So we got the door access security program.
Exactly right. So at 21:36, he throws the deadbolt to 32135. Now, this is very important. 10 minutes go by. In the middle of those 10 minutes, the concert begins. Now, as we've discussed before, these were connecting rooms. 32135 and 32134 were connecting with an interior door. So the 135 door was not opened. Precisely 10 minutes later, the deadbolt was thrown to 134. So that's from the inside. So that is absolute conclusive proof of, with no doubt whatsoever, because 32135 was not opened again, that interior door was used to throw the deadbolt on 134, or there was a second person in there to do it. There is no other way. So that interior door, fast forward a half hour or so after the shooting, Paddock's dead. The police breach the door to 32135, find Paddock's dead body. They themselves, the police, could not get into 134. They tried to kick through the door, couldn't do it, and had to breach the door so that they could enter 134. That deadbolt on the passage door between the two rooms was deadbolted from the 134 side. Now, we know that prior to the shooting, that door either had to be opened so that Paddock could go through and lock the 134 door to the hallway, or somebody else was in that room. It has to be one of the two.
Pausing for just a moment to orient you. Look at the red box, look at the red label. Just above the red label is an object, a rectangular object. And above that, directly outside the red box, is the room service cart with the remains of a meal, and under some of that room service material was a camera positioned to view down the hallway. So let's return to the commentary.
Didn't follow it up on. Now, in that room, too, another interesting point out of all of that, 2 computers were found. One of those computers had the hard drive missing. That was removed from it. Well, why would you bring a laptop to the room to do a shooting that already had that hard drive removed? That doesn't make sense. So it's logical that that was removed at the time.
The computer hard drive, while it is a very important point, it is not the point that I was looking for. What I was looking for is this, keeping in mind 20 minutes after 9, the hay bale incident happens, and then 10 minutes later 134's deadbolt is thrown from the inside, and the concert appears to have started late. I'm going to double check that for its factual accuracy. If I am wrong, I will update you, and there will be a prominent note, probably at the head of the next broadcast, or by Monday for sure. So let's listen to some more of this report.
Questions. I mean, to make the statement in the police report that there's no evidence is a falsehood. There's clearly evidence, and the evidence wasn't followed up on. And let me come back to one other point that we've discussed previously, and that's Brian Hodges, the Australian that in the several hours following the mass shooting claimed to have been in room 32134.
And this is via multiple social media posts that were made. Then following up on that, because of those posts, he was interviewed numerous times on mostly Australian media, and during those interviews claimed that he was in that room.
Correct.
That had been his room.
Radio and television interviews that he later did that were in Australia. Now, an interesting point out of all that, he claims to have been in room 32134. Talked about Brian Hodges and how he claimed to be in the room, the shooter's room, 32134. He was at least on that floor as a guest in his own right and was supposed to have been checked into 32129, which 32 designates floor, 1 indicates the hallway, and then his room was 29 and it was 34 and 35. So he was very near where the shooting took place. Why would he have not been questioned just anyway? But he was not, having been somebody supposedly on that floor.
All right, I'm sorry for the ragged cut. I'd like to thank One America News Network and Jack Posobiec for continuing to investigate and report. I am cutting it there. I'm leaving it as a teaser because what he says about the Australian next is very, it raises lots of questions. But we're going to leave it there because this is their report and not ours. It's their investigative work, not ours. And we're going to go next. They have mentioned that the final report, which we were promised, has been released. And I just went and did a search, and as you can see right here on the left, LVMPD final report. I left you a search link. The top 2 are the actual PDFs, and so you don't even have to do any work. Just click on the link in the show notes. So let's move on. We're going to move on to something called a white hat report. And what is a white hat report? What are white hats? This is a term that has been thrown around in American politics for a little while. So we're going to listen to a white hat, an example of a white hat report. It does not have anything directly to do with Las Vegas. It's an example. We're going to listen to the whole clip, and I will be honest with you. This content producer, I don't know how the intended pronunciation is, but it looks to me like this. There's a Hebrew or an Aramaic word in the middle, so I'm going to pronounce it to the best of my ability that way. And the channel name and producer is TipharethSquared. I don't know what that means. I've never run across this producer. I was looking for an example. Now, because this producer published this report long before Las Vegas, that's why I'm saying this producer does not have anything to do with Las Vegas. So let's take a listen.
Dear Mr. President, it is with considerable regret that I find myself communicating on record to a public official with whom I once had so much hope for integrity in office. I have personally written letters to you by registered mail and through Joshua Dubois on June 14, 2010, July 9, and July 30th of 2010. None of my letters advising you of the corruption and bribery of senior public officials, past and present, have been accorded the respect of a reply or action. Numerous other parties have also addressed with you, in writing, details of transgressions and RICO-level actions involving elected officials and bankers. None have been given the courtesy of a response for very serious charges. Ignoring them has simply incited parties to address a collective marshaled campaign. You have also been advised previously by my letters of the corruption dealing with Mr. Falcone settlement monies and others. Enclosed is a letter describing future corruption by senior officials tampering with bank records, theft, fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. This attached corruption report by Mr. Falcone is currently being shared with certain congressional members, and these members are seeking to have a congressional panel set up to investigate corruption by government officials that you have allowed to take place in your administration. Mr. President, As you are aware, if you are allowing these types of corruption in your administration, and if you're not taking action, these are grounds for impeachment. I pray for you to make the right decision. Sincerely, Walter E. Fauntleroy, Member of Congress, 1971 to 1991. Mr. Falcone reports that in early September, former President George Bush Sr. orchestrated a government plane equipped with 6 of his key people to go to Germany, the Caribbean, Spain, and on to Hong Kong. They traveled from Hong Kong back to the U.S. approximately October 26th. During this government-paid and sponsored trip, they modified and changed records and bank books of George Bush Sr. in Germany and the Caribbean for his payoffs he's received by utilizing Falcone's money over the years. These allegations have been reported to the FBI and other agencies by Mr. Falcone over 2 years ago, and to this date, there's been no action taken. Over a year and a half ago, Joe Biden began looking into helping Mr. Falcone in getting his settlement funds released. Then he was approached by Hillary Clinton to discontinue his support and to help block the release of Mr. Falcone's settlement funds. Vice President Joe Biden agreed in lieu of a large payoff of over $200 million he's received over the last year and a half. Subsequently, Joe Biden became aware that Mr. Falcone had become knowledgeable of his payments held in a German bank. Therefore, under the direction of George Bush Sr., the traveling team modified the records of Joe Biden's German account. They sent out approximately $200 million out of the German bank to a bank in Spain and Hong Kong. At this time, all particulars, including account information, will be shared with the congressional members. These banks and accounts will be constantly monitored until this is dealt with in congressional hearings. Mr. Falcone reported earlier that former President George Bush Sr. orchestrated several government-sponsored planes equipped with key people to modify and change various bank accounts and records in various countries. Commerce Bank in Frankfurt, Germany, is one bank in particular where they modified incoming and outgoing money wires of various account holders on Bush Sr.'s orders. The funds in question in named accounts were derived from an offspring of stolen funds of Mr. Falcone's and are separate and apart from Mr. Falcone's other government settlement fund account. George Bush Sr., in partnership with Michael Herzog and his partner Paul Gwinnett, gave clearance to Herzog to steal Mr. Falcone's original principal, the funds to syndicate and set up a separate trading fund fronted by Mitt Romney. The profits from trading activities were used for themselves without Mr. Falcone's approval or participation. At one point, Herzog wanted to return Mr. Falcone's funds, and Bush Sr. said no. Herzog advanced the proceeds from trading utilizing Mr. Falcone's stolen funds to accounts of George Bush Sr.'s, George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, and others. Mitt Romney has received over $1 billion from Mr. Falcone's stolen funds. Mr. Falcone has filed complaints with the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Federal Reserve regarding his stolen funds and the corruption involved. The files are still open and have never been addressed, resolved, or settled. To date, President Obama, with full knowledge of Mr. Falcone's stolen funds and the corruption involving his administration, has not taken any action whatsoever. Dennis Blair, White House former member of the President's Security Council, was very aware of the facts and corruption involving Mr. Falcone's settlement funds. Mr. Blair went to President Obama and Rahm Emanuel and told them they needed to satisfy and clear the Falcone matter. Blair and Rahm Emanuel had a major run-in because it was discovered that Rahm had also received proceeds from Mr. Falcone's stolen funds. One of the reasons Dennis Blair stepped down was he felt there was too much corruption in Obama's administration and he couldn't take it any longer. After Blair stepped down, Obama later said Blair didn't step down, he fired him in an effort to cover the truth. When Obama took over as president, Mr. Falcone and other government settlements were about to be settled. Instead of concluding these settlements, Obama's administration, with full knowledge of Obama, took advantage of the main player, Bush Sr., and stole money from the settlement fund for personal use. The money that Geithner stole is small in comparison to Romney's stolen billion. George Bush Sr. will do everything to cover up not only his tracks and his role in the stolen Falcone funds, he also wants to cover up the fact that Mitt Romney is involved in fronting for known criminals like Michael Herzog and his partner, Paul Gwinnett. Romney and Bush Sr. are extremely close. Bush Sr. is trying to clear the road so that Romney can become the next presidential candidate. Because Mitt Romney couldn't clear the scrutiny of his financial records and the source of over $1 billion deposited in his offshore bank account, he was not vetted as a vice presidential candidate for John McCain. Romney has not declared these funds, nor has he paid any personal taxes on them. If Romney is really considering running for president in the future, there will be no way he's going to pass clearance. No matter how many records George Bush Sr. and others may change, information regarding his stolen Falcone funds will be splashed all over the world.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. That is an example of a white hat report. Now, we're going to move next to the white hat report. White hats report, pardon me. So what is this? Well, this is a group calling themselves the White Hats. And this is their website. It's been up for a while. They've changed it a little bit. It's black and white like ours is. And they, as you can see on the far left menu section, they report on a lot of things. And the current thing you're reporting on here, as we can see, is the Benghazi situation in which Hillary Clinton was serving as Secretary of State. What I want to say about this is there is an individual, his name is Paladin, and he's a member of this group, and he is kind of the public voice of this group. And he's been interviewed by many people, including Jason Goodman, with regard to Las Vegas. And here we have a reference. This is a new article, and we have a reference to the series that they are doing on the Las Vegas investigation. Paladin has his own YouTube channel, and we are going to go there shortly. But I just want to reference this video series that is included in the Las Vegas analysis. This is not Paladin's work, and we'll discuss that in a moment. So let's go to Paladin's page. Paladin has been interviewed by quite a few people, and we are on, he was encouraged to start his own YouTube channel to put out his perspective and his analysis over time of the reports. He did so somewhat reluctantly at first, because he says in his first report that he's not tech savvy, and it was somewhat of a challenge for him. And I'll just warn you that some of his videos, some of his early videos, it's very difficult to see, or not see, it's very difficult to hear him speaking, and you will have to turn your volume up. That is not the case. In fact, I'm going to make sure that we have my volume down a little bit so that my ears aren't blown out more than they already are every day. So this is his update number 6, and we waited patiently through an illness he had for him to get to this, and he's very thorough. We're going to key in where he is discussing as a setup the in fact, I'm going to roll back just a little bit to make sure that I have it keyed up correctly. He is discussing the medical examiner's FAQ, and I'm going by visual cue here. I might cut off his voice a little bit. But let's listen to what Paladin of the White Hats report says in his opening remarks about the autopsy analysis, and this is update number 6.
Involved to determine cause and manner of death, violence, that includes homicides and suicides. That's in our wheelhouse as far as the purported shooting in Las Vegas on October 1st, 2017. Final determination will be based on the following information. Initial investigation, this is basically information, evidence collected at the scene, and then the medical exam, which includes an external examination and an autopsy. This is a complete physical exam internally as well as externally. It's conducted on the decedent, which includes a thorough exam of each organ and, if necessary, microscopic examination of the organs. This is called histology. This is done, the internal is done with the Y incision on the body. They take the organs out, they weigh them, they section some parts of the organs and send them off if they think they need to get microscopic exams done, biopsies and that kind of thing. Okay, so let's just keep this in mind internally. That's an autopsy by their own definition. Okay, all right, now let's get into the spreadsheet. All right, this is the autopsy master. This is the spreadsheet that I created, and I've got columns A, B, C, and D not shown. A is the autopsy number, B is the fit report number, C is the fit location, and D is the identification of the body and the person. So I'm not going to show that today, I don't think. Just not going to do it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not about that per se. Later on, maybe down the road, we might get into some details on certain people. But I think just going through this will tell you all you need to know about the autopsies. Okay, I'm scrolling down to the bottom.
We're going to stop it there because this is, this is his report, not ours, and we are reporting on him and his work. That's about a half hour, a little over a half hour report, and he has shown you how he has set up his analysis. He's read you the medical examiner's qualifications for what an autopsy is, and then he has shown you his own setup, how he analyzes data. And I have to say to you, this is a very thorough investigator. He alludes to some of his qualifications in other videos and other interviews, and we're not going to take time to do that. If you are interested, all you have to do is put Paladin, Paladin, in the search bar and look for people like Jason Goodman, for example, who have had him on, and you'll understand a little bit better what his qualifications are and why he decided to take on this investigation. I think it was back in December or January he started looking at it a little more closely. We're going to come back to this video in a minute, but I want to move on to show you another, just the site, the YouTube site of another investigator who has done very good work. He goes by the channel name of Mr. Burgandy. I don't know why. I think it's a, cultural reference to Farrell here, who is the icon for Mr. Burgandy. Clearly, Mr. Burgandy is not the man's real name, as Paladin is not his real name, as John 14 is not my real name, nor is halieusmedia, clearly. So I wanted to reference you. This site will just hit Mr. Burgandy's About section, and there's not much here. And the reason there's not much here is, in part, this may have been intentional from the beginning, because you can see he joined on May 24th, 2014. But this may be intentional to preserve privacy. So that's the end of our video reports from somebody else, a bunch of somebody else's. They're all teasers, and boy. And as I've said before, I do not disable those announcements. I've chosen not to, and it's now 6:56 in the morning, and news reports are starting to come out. So if there is something, hot, I will jump track and cover it. But for now, we're going to stick with what we're doing. I want to say a couple of things. There has been some criticism by people that I admire and respect, and people I have no admiration and respect for, meaning trolls. Excuse me, I'm sorry. About the use of pseudonyms and attempts to preserve anonymity, as we've seen in 3 of the 4 clips today, and including mine. In the case of some people, Paladin is an example. Their desire to preserve their anonymity so that they can do their day job, in air quotes, if you will, is legit. His day job, his regular employment, where he has gathered decades of experience and knowledge, which qualifies him to do an analysis and be credible, would be jeopardized if we knew who he was. It's just a fact. Excuse me. For other people, like Mr. Burgandy, I have no idea why he uses a pseudonym. It was an old school practice when we first had visual internet, and even during when it was only text, during telnet days and bulletin board services back in the 90s. That was a practice. Some people chose to use their real name and some people didn't. I have always been a person who uses a pen name or a pseudonym, because I care to have my private life and my extended family protected to the extent that I can from trolls. And we'll look at an example of trolling in a minute. It is not my intention to deceive anyone. It's the information I want you to pay attention to, not, you know, who is the person behind the microphone. Because truthfully, everything you see me report on that is of interest to me or that I care about is truthful from a personal perspective. I don't put out BS. I may be wrong or misinformed, but my opinion is based on the best knowledge that I understand. So let's look at an example of trolling. Now, you're all familiar. You've all read comments in chat rooms and discussion boards and all that stuff. You've all, you know, experienced the phenomena of somebody coming into a discussion somewhere and saying totally off the wall things, or repeating the same message over and over and over again without actually entering into dialogue with anybody else. They just post the same thing over and over and over again. Those are trolls. And they're doing that to provoke a response. They're deliberately being provocative. You've also had the experience of people coming into a chat room and defensively attacking people in a chat room or in a discussion group or on a forum or what have you, because their favorite person or their favorite cause is not the perspective or viewpoint or opinion of the people holding the discussion. That's trolling. But this is a different kind of trolling, and I want to reference back to this video that we looked at of paladins. I am signed in. I just want to point this out. I am signed in, but this browser window did not pick it up. So I'm not, there's no BS going on here. So let's scroll down to Paladin's comments. And the last comment on this video was about 5 months ago. In other words, the most recent. But if we scroll down just a little bit, we will find halieusmedia with the shepherd as my icon. And this is what I said to him on the day of, or maybe one day after this was posted. Thank you, Paladin. I have been waiting for someone to do this sort of analysis, reminding you that he was doing initial autopsy analysis. I have been waiting for someone to do this sort of analysis who also had the observational training and the video capabilities. In other words, the ability to record what they were doing. And then I give him a production note. You moved to printed material at about 0035, but it took the focus mechanism about 2 minutes to clarify on screen. This is a common observation with channels who rely heavily on print material. Why did I say that to him? Because in a part of the video preceding this, that's exactly what happened. And I wanted him to be aware of that because he has said in previous videos he wasn't technically very proficient at video production, despite the fact that he had been encouraged to the point of pressure from friends and associates to apply his expertise to the Las Vegas question. So I am complimenting him. I am giving him one critique to benefit him. And let's look, if you haven't already started reading, at what the response was from someone else, whose name is The Critical Post Chicago. Well, here's an example, Paladin. Someone has been waiting for free information to be entertained by you. Like this person whom created this comment. We wonder how much money would people like this be willing to pay for your time and professional services to get the job done correctly. Of course, people always want things for free on the internet. People are more than willing to be voyeurs looking for entertainment. Entertainment for them. When it comes to actually governing this country, they think that watching any news for content and showing up at the polls every couple of years is, quote, the way, close quote, to govern. Do they understand their monetary system? No. Do they understand basic accounting? No. Do they understand anything but munching Fritos and sipping drinks in front of their computer screens? No. Everyone in this comment section, including, and he puts the caret symbol, presumably referencing my comment, this one, blink in astonishment and are more than willing to provide their, quote, suggestions, close quote. Forget about doing the work for themselves. That takes effort. We have a nation of voyeurs. Seekers of what exactly? Entertainment? Paladin? You have spent about $20,000 of your professional time and labor. Put a paywall up, Paladin. Make these folks pay to see the content, and then see what happens. Your audience will drop to almost nothing because only 1% will actually pony up a couple of bucks to see it. That's how saw these people are, and how sad the state of the nation's fools have become. And then it gives me the option to show less. Some commenter, after reading both comments, thumbed it up. One commenter, or no commenters called him on the carpet for it. And if we scroll back up, 2 commenters gave halieusmedia a thumbs up. What's my point? Remember when we were looking at the White Hat report right here? Whose videos are featured? Not Paladin's, but this other person. Now, I'd like to critique, since this person gave me the benefit, clearly I shut the window that I wanted to reference, and I spent, 15-20 seconds fumbling around to get the window back and find my comment again. I am going to leave the audio with this still shot until we pick up again both audio and video in the same clip. It's the audio, but not me fumbling around. Of his vast knowledge and experience, I'd like to critique his comment. And this is going to autoplay, I think, and I'm going to stop it. I would like to give him the benefit of my critique. I deduced, okay.
Well, just not going to do it.
Stop, Paladin. Thank you. I deduced by examining his comment that he and Paladin knew each other. So before I popped off with my heated response, which may or may not have been my knee-jerk reaction, or defensive reaction. Where's my comment? I did a little looking. And And of course I'm not going to be able to find my own comment because, you know, that's just the way things go. But at any rate, I did a little looking, and I deduced by a simple Google search that this person who popped off at me was in fact acquainted with Paladin, most likely. And so out of respect for Paladin, because my comment was sincere, I know this is very distracting. I'm not going to continue to look for, I'm not, you know, it was my fault for, I just saw the ears of the shepherd somewhere. Other than me being queued up, there we are. Out of respect for Paladin, I did not further the trolling of this person. I addressed it privately with Paladin via email, and I was equally polite and courteous and explained my position and thanked him for his work again. This person, however, you know, trolled me in public. Had this person done one scintilla of research, which is what I did before determining my course of action, this person would have known that I am sincerely an independent reporter, op-ed commentator, and maybe educator, if anybody learns anything from what I try to produce. But this person did not do that. This person just popped off. And so what I'd like to say to the trolls out there is, don't bother, because I'm not going to respond to you. I'm going to treat you exactly the way I treated this person who produces the critical post in Chicago. Let's look again. The White Hats page is freely available. It's public information. While this person who produces the critical post in Chicago may very well have a paywall up for his personal site, what he has produced is freely available. Now, why am I going on and on and on about this? Because without people like the White Hats, without people like Abel Danger, Jason Goodman, Reality Not Fiction, Unirock, Roy Potter Q&A, the Potter Expositor that I talk about all the time, without people like that, and Blackstone Intelligence, I could you know, literally go to our resource page and give you a laundry list of people who are out there doing exactly what I'm doing, trying to give you information and opinion that is not covered in mainstream media, as we have seen in this report this morning. It is always my intention and my practice to credit those people, to point you in the direction of, in my opinion, worthy creators, worthy content, so that you can make your own decisions about who you believe, what you believe, how you act on that information, and how you vote. And this, it brings us to my nagging, you know, do I have my site? No, I don't. It's been covered by 2 iterations of something else. All I have to do is hit H. And here is Halieus Media's site. It is, I still haven't changed the thing here, which means my readership on this site is gone. Nobody is coming to this site out of my readership pool. It is 18 days out from the election. You saw a lot of political information in the example White Hat report. It is up to you to make decisions about who you vote for and why. And so with 18 days out, there are I think maybe 1 or 2 expiring today. Nope, they expired this week, not today. Today being Friday. I don't see anybody expiring today, but Alabama, California, and Alabama and California are expiring, and South Dakota are expiring in 3 days, which would be Monday. Your voter registration deadlines. So please, independent, conservative, liberal, libertarian, political atheist, whoever you are out there, American citizen, please register. Please vote in the midterms. It's very important. All right, let's get off the desk, or let's get off the capture and go back to the desk. So my concluding thoughts for today, where the focus was on Las Vegas and citizen journalists and investigators who have knowledge and experience, and in some cases professional qualifications, to be able to educate, inform, and enlighten a fact-starved audience. That was my objective and my goal. Why did I include the critique of the critical Chicago commenter? It's because I have seen this kind of behavior over and over again. I've not addressed it a lot in the video production. I've only addressed it in terms of the written material on halieusmedia.com. But it is an example, for your reference. If you troll me and leave, personally disparaging comments without knowing anything about me, and clearly this person did not even do a simple Google search, I'm going to treat you the same way. I'm going to ignore you. I will not dignify your trolling. One thing we've learned over time in internet content production, those of us who, have the courage to do that, is that people will attack you for good reason and no reason. And if somebody has a valid criticism, or actually it would be valid critique, if you remember us a few days ago defining the difference between critique and criticism, I'll take it on the chin. I may not like it, I may feel some chagrin at being incorrect, but I'll take it on the chin. If you troll me, I'm either going to ignore you. If you make a nuisance out of yourself, I'm going to block you. Period. With regard to the general observations about me being a Frito-eating, beverage-drinking voyeur seeking entertainment, those of you who have listened to this broadcast for any length of time might have a different opinion, and my opinion of myself is that is totally not true. I am a voracious seeker and consumer of fact-based information for my own education. My mother, for the last part of her career, her professional career, was in the education field. And it was her continuing curiosity and continuing encouragement of us to always learn, always seek, always question, and always educate ourselves throughout a lifetime that motivates me to do exactly that. So that wraps up my commentary, and also I'll look back at a year ago, just about this time, when John 14 created an account on YouTube for the express purpose of commenting or asking questions with regard to the Las Vegas shooting incident. That is truly the first place I started looking. HalieusMedia has grown out of that, and as you've heard me say before, I had no intention of doing that. It was purely for my own education and understanding of a mind-boggling event more than a year later. So with that, it is chilly again today, but it is clear and looks like it's going to be a sunny, beautiful day. The dog has yet another new collar, and she will be using that new collar because her flat collar is, for all intents and purposes, worn out. I still have the training collar, what's commonly referred to as a choke collar, but upon the recommendation of the local seed and feed store owner, who always gives me good advice, I'm trying a gentle lead halter, called the Halty. I'll be doing a product review on its fit and efficiency for the purpose of getting the shepherd to walk at my side and not pull me or wander off. The theory is that the Halty and those types of collars controls the head, therefore it controls the animal, and this is a practice that goes back centuries, if not more than 1,000 years. I'm willing to try it. I have to find some way of controlling her when she is confronted with other dogs and people. And this is pretty much my last resort. Not only is she highly reactive, but she is a submissive but not biddable dog. And for those dog trainers and dog owners with long experience, you'll understand what that means. She's never going to pass a public access test that I can see, but I cannot in good conscience not train her to the best of my ability, so that should she be rehomed, the people that receive her, while she will regress, if they keep up the training protocol, they should have a wonderful dog. Just not one that is going to serve my purposes ultimately. And that honestly makes me very sad, because she's beautiful and she's bright and she's very strong and in all other ways would be suitable for my purposes. That being said, there may be some video of us working with the Halty. I have taken her out once for just a short 20-minute walk. She rebels. She does not like this thing on her face. But I am confident she'll get over it, because she did not like having things in her mouth either. She wasn't trained to fetch or hold things or carry things in her mouth, and she just hated it. But I'm pretty sure she'll get used to this harness type collar, and as she did, carrying her leash and picking things up and going and fetching a ball. So, look forward to a little more of the shepherd than you've seen in quite some time. And with that, for me and the shepherd, on what promises to be a beautiful sunny day, I hope that your weekend is wonderful, that you encounter some surprises that delight and please you. For those of you who know that your weekend ahead is not going to be that kind of weekend, my prayer for you is that you and your family are able to your family are able to deal with what you have to deal with, and know that if you are still cleaning up after the storms, many of your fellow citizens are thinking about you and praying for you. Please reach out if you have needs that are overwhelming you, to churches or community organizations who might be able to help. And so, for me and the shepherd, until we see you again, have a fantastic day.